Welcome today to our science lesson. Our topic today is endocrine system. Endocrine system. Remember, we said that the body is made up of several tissues, cells, organs, and organ system. Therefore, there is need for coordination among these cells, tissues, and organs so that they can satisfy the demands or the needs of the cells. So we mentioned two systems in the body that brings about coordination. One of them was nervous system. And then the one that works closely with the nervous system is endocrine system. And previously, you have also noted that all systems are made up of some other components. In this case, endocrine system is made up of glands. And these glands usually secrete chemical substances that are usually protein in nature called hormones. So the glands are going to secrete hormones. These hormones, the hormones are the ones that carry messages from one part of the body to another, specifically to target cells or target organs. For instance, we have a hormone called adrenaline. Adrenaline is secreted by a gland called adrenal gland. Adrenal hormone that has been secreted will act in various parts of the body to bring out several responses. So what are these hormones? Hormones are chemical messengers. Chemical messengers that are protein in nature. And brings about responses in target organs. Sometimes it could be tissues, it could be cells. So these responses will vary depending on the type of hormone that has been secreted. The study of the glands together with hormones in the endocrine system is called endocrinology. So the word is just derived from the first part of our topic, endocrinology. So when you study glands together with the hormones that are secreted with these glands, we call that study as endocrinology. It's the study of endocrine glands, and hormones that are secreted by these glands. But one thing worth noting about the endocrine system, although we have said that it is closely related to nervous system, there is some slight difference in that for the nervous system, the nerve impulses, which are in chemical form, are usually travel or are transmitted through nerve fibers or nerve cells. Remember, we mentioned those nerve cells like motor neuron to provide passage or conduction of the nerve impulses. Motor neuron, sensory neuron, relay neuron. But for endocrine glands, the gland will just secrete hormone, and then that hormone will diffuse in blood, and blood will now take over to transport the hormones to target cells or target sites. So because of that, because the system lacks a clear channel through which the hormones are traveling or are being transmitted, we say endocrine gland system is ductless. Is a ductless system. I've said it is ductless because the hormones usually, after being secreted or produced by the glands, they just diffuse into blood, and then the blood will carry these hormones to the site of action. So hormones are or diffuse in blood and carried to site of action and to site of action. And because it is in blood, remember, blood will be found all over. Like it will be traveling or being transported through capillaries, from arteries, veins, then the finer parts, the capillaries. So blood is all over. So realize that even when hormones are secreted by a gland in a given area, for example, in a pituitary gland in the brain, it will go into the blood. But because blood is getting all over the body, you realize that the hormones will also get nearly all to every part of the body. So realize that the action of hormones are not localized, are not in a specific area. They usually diffuse. Action of hormones is diffuse. In other words, it does not have a specific target area. It is not localized. It is not localized. So several experiments have been carried out to investigate endocrine system. But we have one major scientist who began with the investigation in the endocrine system. That scientist is called A. Bethold. So the first investigative experiments into endocrine system were carried out by this scientist, Bethold. So his first experiment was very simple. He was studying birds, the roosters, male birds. What he did with the birds, he removed testes. He removed testes, and he was able to observe what will happen to the male birds after removal of the testes. These were the effects. One of the effects is that these birds, as they were growing, they developed a small comb. Male birds they usually have a large comb. But in this experiment, after removal of the testes surgically, one of the effects was development of a small comb as the male birds continued to grow. Another effect was less they became less aggressive. The birds became less aggressive. Male birds are usually aggressive or very aggressive. Another effect was that they developed a low sex drive. The birds became or had low sex drive. But again, he replaced surgically the testes in some of the birds after replacement. After replacement, the normal development of the male birds were followed, in that, in terms of the comb, the birds developed large comb or large combs. They became aggressive after replacement of the testes. They had high sex drive. So these were two main procedures. One of them removing the testes and then observing the effect of removal of the same. These were the effects. But after surgically replacing the testes, the normal development or normal behavior of the birds were observed, having large combs, being aggressive as normal or as usual, and then having high sex drive. So from this from the two-step experiment, he was able to make a conclusion. He concluded that there must be a substance being secreted by testes that causes the response in various parts of the body. There must be a substance being secreted by testes that causes response in various parts of the body. So when other scientists followed the Berthold experiment, they were now able to investigate even further into the endocrine system. They were following the same step. They will remove a gland which they don't know their role or the hormones that are produced. For example, a gland like adrenal gland. And then they observe the effect of removal. And then replace the same gland. And then observe if that organism or that experimental animal is going to develop normal behavior of development. So from that, other scientists followed the same investigative procedure. Investigative procedures to come up with more knowledge on the endocrine system. So you need to be reminded that we have said endocrine system, two major parts, components. We have the glands, and then the glands usually secrete the hormones. So I want to look at some of these parts. Glands and their roles. I'll use a simple sketch just to show the position of some of the glands. If that's the human being, and then that's the body. So the brain has several glands that contribute to endocrine system. In our previous lesson, we have looked at parts of the brain. So we shall just highlight several parts that form the glands. Remember, we talked about cerebellum, the largest part of the brain. That one, we talked about cerebellum, that part of the brain. Medulla oblongata, that part of the brain. But we have specific parts here that are very important for us. We have a gland called hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, or a part of the brain. Then another gland called pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. We have pineal gland. So in the brain, we have three major glands or major parts that form the endocrine system: hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and the pineal gland. Other parts are parts of the brain that have other specific functions. Then in the neck, we have two types of glands there. At the upper part, we have what you call parathyroid gland. It is located in the neck region. And then again in the neck region, we have another gland called thyroid gland. And then along the respiratory system, again, this is the trachea, just at the point where trachea divides into bronchi, the two bronchi, this one and this one. We have a gland on that trachea. That gland is called thymus gland. We have thymus gland. Then down the digestive system, we have other parts that also function as glands. We have pancreas. We have the pancreas. Stomach also, as a wall, is a gland. Stomach wall also acts as a gland. We are going to find out the hormone that it secretes. Even the small intestines, we also have a gland there. Reproductive system, we have a gland. In form of, if it is female, ovaries. Ovary is a form of a gland. If it is male, the testis also form part of the glands. So we shall go through most of them and find out the kind of hormones they secrete and the roles of those hormones. We may begin from the head, the pineal gland. Pineal gland secretes a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin. The role of melatonin is to controls biological rhythm. Biological rhythm. When you talk of biological rhythm is this: when it's time to sleep, you must go to sleep. You'll just feel like you have to go and sleep, especially when it is night time. It is ingrained into the system but is controlled by the pineal gland, which secretes a hormone, melatonin, that controls biological rhythm, the night, the day rhythm. And then we have hypothalamus. Hypothalamus here is the one that integrates endocrine gland with the nervous system. Integrates nervous system and endocrine system. In other words, they are supposed to function together to achieve the satisfaction of the cells. So one major role is integration of a nervous system and endocrine system. And then another major role is the one that sends impulses to this part of the brain, pituitary gland, so that now it controls other glands. So stimulates pituitary gland into action. How does it do this? In two ways. By either sending impulse, it sends impulses to pituitary gland, or sending a hormone, sending hormones. Some of the hormones that are secreted by hypothalamus include oxytocin hormone. Remember, oxytocin is very important, for example, in production of milk. When mammary glands accumulate or store milk, for milk to come out, there will be release of oxytocin from hypothalamus that will stimulate the mammary glands so that there's some slight contraction so that milk is now released. Even during birth, to produce labor so that the child can be able to be born. We have others like ADH in relation to pituitary gland. So it's going to secrete, to release impulses or hormones to pituitary gland that will then act accordingly. Pituitary gland. From this chart, you can identify the position of pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is found below the hypothalamus and is found in the midbrain. So the role of the pituitary gland is mainly to control all other glands, but information coming from hypothalamus. So because it controls all other glands, it is called a master gland. It's a master gland. Master gland because the rest of these glands usually submit to instruction or impulses in form of hormones coming from pituitary glands. But for it to be a master gland, it usually produces hormones to send those messages to all other glands so that they can respond appropriately. We have hormones that are involved. Some of the hormones include hormones secreted by pituitary gland, include adrenocorticotropic hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, abbreviated as ACTH. Now, this word you can easily guess where it's going to act. Adreno from the word adrenaline, adrenal gland, cortical, cortex, then tropic on the upper part. So adrenocortical tropic hormone stimulates adrenal gland to secrete a hormone called adrenaline. Then another hormone is thyroid stimulating hormone. So from the name of the hormone, we can easily tell where or the kind of gland that will be stimulated or that will be controlled by pituitary gland. That gland is thyroid. So thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates thyroid gland. Stimulates thyroid gland to secrete a hormone. That hormone is called thyroxine. Thyroxine hormone. We have others like follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone. Again, we have to ask yourself, where is this structure called follicle? Follicle is found in the ovaries. So because it is found in the ovaries and is stimulating, so it is the one that will stimulate the ovary to release some hormones like estrogen and progesterone. Stimulates ovary cells to secrete two types of hormone. We are going to find out their roles, or estrogen and progesterone. Again, we have another hormone from pituitary gland called luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone also acts, if it is for female, it will be follicle stimulating hormone, so that the ovary can secrete estrogen and progesterone. In male, pituitary gland will release a hormone, luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone will act or will cause testes to secrete a hormone called testosterone. Stimulates testes to secrete a hormone called testosterone. Now, as we move down, we have parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland usually secretes a hormone called parathyroxine hormone. The role of parathyroxine hormone is to raise calcium level in blood, raises calcium level in blood. Then we shall label this one down here, thymus. We have thyroid gland. Thyroid gland secretes a hormone called thyroxine. This thyroxine, it has been found that it's a compound of iodine. That's why the salt that you use in your food has iodine so that it can be used in the manufacturing or in the production of thyroxine hormone. We are going to look at the roles of thyroxine hormone. Thyroxine hormone being secreted by thyroid glands. So one of the major function of thyroxine is controlling metabolic rates in our bodies. Controls metabolic rates in our bodies. So how will it do this? It's going to control metabolic rates by either increasing or decreasing oxidation of glucose. Increases or decreases oxidation of glucose. It causes oxidation of glucose or oxidation of glucose to increase or to decrease. Another function of thyroxine hormone, it enhances activity of growth hormone called somatotropin. That is somatotropin, the growth hormone. Also, it enhances activities. It enhances involuntary activities. Involuntary activities. Remember, in our previous lessons, we talked about involuntary activities. Examples were, for instance, breathing. Breathing is an involuntary activity. You cannot decide that you do not want to breathe. Digestion. Once food gets into the digestive system, the process that will take place, whether you like it or not, is digestion. Even heartbeat or blood circulation, several of them. So it enhances involuntary activities, enhances activity of growth hormone, increases or controls metabolic rates by increasing or decreasing oxidation of glucose. If it is not in human beings or other organisms, like in amphibians, it causes metamorphosis. Remember metamorphosis, that stage by stage growth. If it is amphibians, you realize that we have the egg. For it to develop into an adult, it will hatch into a tadpole and then later into an adult. These stages are controlled by thyroxine hormone. That's why we are saying it causes metamorphosis in organisms like in the amphibians. Then when you move down, we have thymus glands. When you are going through the topic immune system, you came across thymus glands. Thymus glands. You learned something about thymus gland. But for this purpose, we shall want to identify the hormone and its role. The hormone secreted by thymus gland is called thymosin. Thymosin. So what is the role of thymosin? Remember we said that thymus gland is the one that is involved in changing lymphocytes into T cells or specialized T cells. But that is under the action of a hormone called thymosin. Thymosin will act on T lymphocytes, lymphocytes, and then change it into specialized T cells so that they can be able to now be effective in providing immunity to the body. Then down, we have stomach there. Let us, in a schematic way, the stomach. Stomach also is classified as an endocrine gland. Stomach. Now remember, when we are looking at digestive system, we said when food falls or gets into the stomach, one of the things that happens is that stomach walls or cells are going to be stimulated and a hormone will be secreted by stomach walls. That hormone is called gastrin hormone. Gastrin hormone usually acts on cells found in the stomach walls called parietal cells. And then these parietal cells will now secrete a juice called gastric juice. So in essence, stomach walls is an endocrine gland because it secretes gastrin hormone, which stimulates parietal cells. Then parietal cells will release gastric juice. You can remember the roles of gastric juice or the content of gastric juice, like hydrochloric acid, pepsinogen, and mucus. So another gland, very important, is pancreas. Pancreas. Pancreas has two roles. It has digestive role and also endocrine roles. Remember, as a digestive organ, it secretes enzymes. Those enzymes are called pancreatic enzymes. For instance, pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase, pancreatic trypsinogen. But as an endocrine gland, it secretes two types of hormones. One of them is called insulin. Insulin. The role of insulin hormone is that when blood sugar is very high in the blood, we have high glucose in blood, is the one that will bring it back to normal. So it lowers blood sugar. Blood sugar. In this case, which is glucose, back to normal levels. To normal level. The normal level of sugar in blood is supposed to range between 70 milligrams to 100 milligrams of blood of 100 cubic centimeters of blood. That's the normal level. But the question is, how does insulin achieve this? How does it lower blood sugar back to normal? Insulin lowers blood sugar back to normal by causing liver cells. It stimulates, causes liver cells to do the following. One of them is converting excess glucose into glycogen. That glycogen will be stored in two places, in the liver cells, because that's where it's formed, first of all, and also in skeletal muscles for storage in liver cells and skeletal muscles. Another way in which insulin is involved in this activity, lowering blood sugar, is causing liver cells to increase oxidation of glucose. Increase oxidation of glucose. The problem is sugar level is above the normal. So to return it back to normal, what's going to happen? There will be increase in oxidation of glucose, so that now the level goes back to normal. Another means is through converting excess glucose into fats. And then these fats will be stored in our body as adipose tissue. Adipose tissue. Where do we find adipose tissue? Adipose tissue is found under the skin. Under the skin. Now, when you'll be studying or going through skin, you'll be able to come across a section of the skin called the adipose tissue, just below the epidermis and the dermis and the epidermis. So these are the ways in which insulin will lower blood sugar back to normal. Maybe sugar has gone above this 100 milligrams per 100 cubic centimeter of blood. So insulin will be secreted by pancreas. Then it will cause the liver cells to do the following: converting excess glucose to glycogen, increasing oxidation of glucose, and then converting excess glucose to fats, so that it can now be stored in form of adipose tissue. Another hormone is glucagon hormone, secreted by pancreas. B. Glucagon hormone. So this is also another hormone secreted by pancreas. Now, glucagon hormone is antagonistic to insulin. In other words, it reverses the effect of insulin hormone. When blood sugar is too low, below 70 milligrams per 100 cubic centimeters of blood, glucagon hormone will be secreted by pancreas. Glucagon hormone will causes liver cells to do the following: to reverse what we have just mentioned. For example, if it is converting excess glucose to glycogen, it will convert glycogen stored into glucose. Converting stored fats into glucose. Remember, it's glucose because this is the form in which carbohydrates circulate, is transported in the blood system. And then also decreasing, it will cause liver cells to decrease oxidation, of glucose. So in the process, it will bring back blood sugar back to normal. So glucagon hormone, this one increases blood sugar. Increases blood sugar to normal level, 70 to 100. Insulin decreases blood sugar back to normal. The other parts that we need to go through, we do not show it on the black wall. We have small intestinal walls. Small intestinal wall. Small intestinal wall also secretes a hormone called secretin. Secretin hormone. Secretin hormone will act on the same walls, on the walls of ileum. So that now the walls of ileum secretes a juice called succus entericus. So this Saccas entericus is the one that contains enzymes that are found in the ileum where digestion is completed. The other part, ovary. Ovary secretes two types of hormones. One of them is called estrogen or estrogen. The role of estrogen. This one causes development of secondary sexual characteristic in males. In females, causes development of secondary sexual characteristics in female. What are some of those characteristics? You know some of them, e.g. development of breasts and several others. So it means if there is a means or a mechanism of interfering with estrogen, ovaries, maybe ovaries are removed at an early stage, maybe when the girl is developing at 6, 7 years, there will be impairment on development of some of the sexual characteristic. For example, that girl cannot develop the breast because the source of the hormone estrogen has been removed. Therefore, some of the secondary sexual characteristic cannot develop. Another role of estrogen is to lead to development of the ova. We have in the ovary cells that need to be developed to become mature ova or ovum. This is singular, then plural. So estrogen will come in handy. Then we have testes. Testes secretes, we have two hormones, I have not mentioned them. We have estrogen and progesterone, that is progesterone. Progesterone, it has one major function is maintenance of pregnancy. How does it maintain pregnancy? It maintains pregnancy in two ways: by increasing blood supply to the endometrium. Endometrium are the walls of the uterus. And then by also thickening walls of endometrium. Thickening walls of endometrium. So when there is increased blood supply and thickened walls of the endometrium, there will be easy implantation of the fetus so that it can now develop. Testes. Testes secretes one major hormone, testosterone. Just like in female, ovary secreting estrogen for development of female sexual characteristics, secondary sexual characteristic, is the same for male. So this one is produced in male and is meant for development of secondary sexual characteristics. For example, beards, development of beards, deep voice, broad shoulders in males. It's under the influence of testosterone. So just like the scientist who first investigated into endocrine system birth hold, if it is removed, if the testes are removed very early in the developmental stage of human being, maybe below 10 years, some of the characteristics, what we call secondary characteristics, cannot be able to develop. And then also for sperm formation and production. It controls sperm formation and production. So those are the major parts of the endocrine glands, of the endocrine system and their function. So slightly, we can look at how is it different from nervous system. We use this question. Our question today, one of them is, state how endocrine system is different from nervous system. We can use a table to show that. The nervous system and then endocrine system. We can look at the form in which the message is transported. The form in which the message is transported. So for nervous, we said the form will be in form of a chemical substance. So chemical substance is the one that is the one that evokes response. Chemical substance evokes the response. And then here is the hormone that evokes response. In terms of speed, nervous system and endocrine system. Remember, if we have a hormone in the head region, maybe it has to act in another part of the body. We have said the first thing that should happen is the hormone to be released into the blood through diffusion, and then it moves through the blood circulatory system, then diffuses. So that is going to take a longer time if it is for endocrine system. But for nervous system, it's very fast because there are specific route: sensory neuron, intermediate neuron, then motor neuron. So here response is fast, is very fast, and then response is slow. We used an example of touching a hot object. When you touch a hot object, you remove your hand very fast. You are not going to think about it. You are not going to take 1 minute or 2 hours to do that. But for endocrine system, the response is slow. Look at development of secondary sexual characteristic. They take time, even years, and yet the hormones have been released or are continually being released. Then, if we look at the time the effect lasts, for nervous system, the effect lasts for a short duration. But for endocrine system, the effect of hormones lasts. The effect lasts for a long time. For a long time. The other question that you can do it at your own time is this: state how nervous and endocrine system are similar. So through the internet or through books in the library, you can go and research for similarities between nervous system and the endocrine system. So I hope you have enjoyed this lesson. For all the questions, you know how to get to us.